Hi friends, it's Leithia from Farmview Creators. Today we're going to work on the Autumn Harvest porch liner insert from the Rust Covered Cottage by Christina. I love the porch liners. Remember, there are three different base styles that you can get off of her site as well. Categorizing my pieces based on what I'm thinking of painting them. Wasn't really sure how I wanted to do all of these pieces before I started, but I decided I wanted to use Van Dyke Brown as a stain on the top sign. This is a Paint Couture product. It is a semi-gel glaze. I'm kind of putting it on the knobs for that piece and on the acorn and some other pieces. For the lantern, I am using Pitch Black. This one is a chalk style paint. Goes on with a nice matte finish. Pitch Black is just such a really rich black that a lot of times you don't really need two coats. I am going to put two coats on this one, but I really could have gotten away with just one, to be honest. Just kind of giving it a good solid layer and then setting those aside. Almost forgot that bottom base, but you need the little legs of the lantern and the piece that inserts into your signpost. I'm going to use British Gray on the, I guess it would be the glass part of the lantern. Really just making sure that I keep the paint within the lines because I have to go in and paint those floral branches. And for those, I'm going to use Basil. This is another chalk style paint from Paint Couture. That top leaf just kind of goes into the top cap of the lantern, so just being really careful to paint that correctly. And then getting a good layer on there. Usually I try to paint in the direction of the wood grain, but sometimes on these decorative pieces that are all attached, that gets a little difficult. I did do two coats of that as well. The chalk style paints go on matte and they do not have a built-in top coat. That's why you can use them for crackle, but the acrylic minerals have a built-in top coat and a little bit of a sheen to them. This one is Night Sky. It is a gorgeous deep dark navy, and I accidentally pulled out a mop brush to put that on, so it didn't go on quite as well as I would have liked. For my pumpkin, I'm going back to chalk style paints and using a sponge and dabbing and then kind of wiping. I was dabbing on those score lines because I do want them to be prominent, and because I kind of filled them in accidentally, I'm using my weeding tool from my Cricut to kind of clean out those lines, and where I kind of get outside of the tracks, just going in with that sponge and kind of touching those areas up. And then love it, beautiful. Second coat of that blue, I will end up doing 3 coats on the blue just because it's so dark, it's sometimes hard to get it even. I am using just a little bit of that Autumn Sage chalk style paint from the pumpkin to kind of maybe put a glow of that green in the lantern. Put too much, wiped it back with a baby wipe, which is totally fine. That's one thing I love about these crafts is if you mess something up, you can wipe it back. I am going in with Mulberry on the tips of that greenery, just because I wanted to add a little something to it. So I'm not really sure what this brush is called, but it's kind of got a widespread with the bristles, and it's blunt cut, and they're a little bit more coarse than others. My yellow is going to be Spanish Sunrise. This is my favorite yellow. And then for the top of the acorn, I'm using Grounded. Both of those are acrylic minerals. Going to do 2 coats of each. And then I am going to start on those, I think they look like oak leaves. So I'm going to start on those. I'm going to open up a couple of colors, and the new colors that I opened today wanted to spew on me. So there's that. That orange is Harvest Maple, and it is a luxe metallic, so it has some shimmer to it. The purple is not eggplant, it's the other purple. Kale something. I love it. I love them all. I'm going in with Barn Door and some of the Spanish Sunrise, and I just keep pouncing with these. They're like stippling brushes until I get them the way I want. And I wanted it kind of even, and you know, I didn't want sharp lines between the colors, and also didn't want them to have the same type of pattern necessarily. For my letters, I'm using my new Luxe Metallic Copper. Oh, so pretty. So pretty. And just brushing that on with a small flat square end brush. A lot of times I will use sponges for my letters to keep the paint out of the nooks and the crannies, but if you use a small tipped brush, you can do this without getting it gooped up. And luckily this time I was able to do that. I'm brushing some of that copper on the acorn just to kind of zhuzh it up a little bit. I didn't feel like I needed 2 coats of that copper. Love how it shimmers. On this top plate, I wanted to add something else to it. I wanted to tie it in with the rest of the project. So I am using a dry brush, chippy brush, and just dry brushing some of that British gray across just to blend it in with the rest of the pieces. Almost forgot the top of that pumpkin. Went in with a layer of grounded and then added some of that copper and just kind of brushing it around the edges and through, not full coverage with the copper. And then that last coat of Night Sky. Beautiful, beautiful blue. And then we're going in with Vintage Moss to add a little something to the pumpkin. She's kind of using kind of rounded strokes to kind of mimic the grooves of a pumpkin and just accenting throughout, and I just kept going until I liked what I saw. And then for the other accent colors, I am using Italian Ivory and a very small fine tip brush, and just kind of drawing a line and dots and putting kinks in it when I want to, just to give it more dimension. Doing the same thing across the pumpkin, being real careful over that just painted Vintage Moss. Just adding a little bit here and there. And again, I just kept going until I was happy with it. I decided I didn't need to put any on that square lantern base, but I did go through with all the other pieces. Kind of, I don't know, I just got a little happy with this oak leaf, and I didn't really mean to put the accents on the corresponding leaves like that. I wanted to stagger them like I did on the top one, but you know, it happens. And then just kind of alternating with these dots from the bottom of the letter to the next letter of the top, up and down. And then on the harvest with that bouncy script, just kind of highlighting that top curved edge of the letters. Just again, and I did that on the knobs, did not like it, so again I just wiped it off, and then decided I needed a few more dots on that acorn, and then going in on the lantern base and adding that highlighting to the edge of the basil and mulberry leaves. So I tried to do a line on one side and then the dots on the opposite side on a few of them, not all of them. I was trying not to get too carried away. So especially on that upper one, really thinking about, well, where do I want this? And I'm telling you from experience, make sure you dry your dots really well, because many times I've gone in with my top coat and smeared my dots, or gone in with my wax and smeared it. So I'm using Debbie's DIY dark wax and just kind of brushing it across and around the edges of the pieces, just again to kind of give it more dimension and more character. If you get too much, you wipe it back with a baby wipe. And hitting all of those pieces, everything gets some dark wax. And then I'm going to start with my Extreme Guard top coat. This one is for if your piece is going to be outside like this one or in the sun. It protects it from the sunlight, things like that. It does have a little bit of a sheen to it. So I always go in on top of that and add another layer of dead flat top coat just because I love, love, love that matte finish. So I'm going to use the same brush. I shake it and then I dip out of the lid and then putting that dead flat on, and you'll see it takes out the shine everywhere you want it to, but on those luxe metallic colors, which the copper and the orange maple harvest are both luxe metallics, you'll still have that shine in there, that sparkle. Making sure I get all the pieces. Don't want a little shiny spot when you get out in the sunshine. And just making sure I protect it all. Anytime it kind of gooped up in those corners, I kind of went in with my brush to grab it more. And there you can see after it dries, really nice matte color. Art glitter glue is the best. I'm not really sure what possessed me to put down strips of glue on all those letters for autumn, but it did work. Worked actually really well. But with the bouncy letters, it's hard to do. So I just put it like I normally do on the wood piece that I'm gluing down. Starting with the top lid of the lantern and lining that up as best I can on those sides before I really put some pressure to adhere it. And then again, layering that the sides and top and bottom of that. And then my candle, I wasn't sure where I wanted that flame. I had it above the candle and then pushed it down. So one reason I like art glitter glue is you can move your pieces. There's a little bit of wiggle time. It also doesn't make my fingers crusty. It has really good adhesion. Trying to make sure I get that acorn in the center of the piece that is going to go down into the porch leaner, and then getting that glued in, looking at it, make sure you can, like I said, you can move it. Then using those little detailing brush things to get some of the glue up. And then I had just, I don't know why, but I didn't get my lantern just right, so I had a little bit of raw wood showing through. So I used those detailing brushes for what they're meant to, which is adding little tiny bits of paint where they're needed. And then I used a third one to kind of blend in that basil. I love, love, love how this project turned out. All of the colors and all of the dimensions. It's really kind of hard to see that that is a navy on the candle, but it is, and I love it. It sparkles and it added a little something. There it is in my planter. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.